And something really powerful happens when you start talking about your dreams and you share it with people.
Yeah.
And you take the first step and you start seeing small things happen, small results happen, because you start convincing yourself that it is possible. That is the first step.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is What's Your IQ? Let's talk about your impact quotient. And I am live. I'm on location for the first time in Singapore. Woo! And my guest today is a lovely young woman that I met just a few days ago.
Well, actually, I think it was just 2 days ago.
2 days ago, actually 2 days ago. Rae Fung, and she is a coach and a just inspiration to everyone she meets. I fell in love with her. Rae, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having me. I think that even this first live podcast recording, how this event happened, is such a testament of your spontaneity. You know, you just like being present in the moment. 2 days ago when we had coffee, you wanted to shoot a podcast on Zoom and you're like, you know what? Why not do it in person? And we are here.
And the connections that you make, because you were the one who said, I know someone that has a podcast studio that just got it set up. Let's call her and see if she's got a slot available. And she did.
In 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes. We were done. We were ready, had everything ready. Here we are.
Yes.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about you, though, and tell me, how did you get involved in coaching? What made you decide to be a coach?
Wow, you know, I never imagined that coaching could be an actual profession. When I think of a coach, I thought that you have to be old, successful, earn lots of money, be some CEO, climb the corporate ladder. So I never saw myself as a coach at all. And then when I was in my, last year in university, I was doing an internship. It was a compulsory internship. And I kept being paired up with this young gentleman who's like 4 or 5 years younger than me. And since we got paired up, I had to talk to him. So we had lots and lots of conversations taking the bus. And one of his key pains and struggles is he was struggling between choosing what he wants to do in university versus what his parents wanted for him. And he was asking me for advice, like, what should I do? And so, I asked him a couple of questions through our conversation. And by the end of the internship, he had a long letter saying, thanks, Rae, for being my mentor, for coaching me, for helping me find my voice and helping me decide what I want to do and not what my parents want to do for me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, coach, mentor, what? I was just being myself. And then looking back, I realized, I was coaching him. I wasn't just giving him advice on what he should or should not do. I was asking him questions to help him lean into his inner wisdom and identify what exactly he wanted to do, to learn how to speak to his parents, have those tough conversations, and trust his voice. So that was the first time I really started coaching someone. I just didn't have the language.
Wow. How about that? And speaking of parents, how did your parents feel about you going into the coaching? Most parents, being a parent myself, you have to be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, something, some profession, education, something. How did they feel about you going into coaching? And did they understand what that was and how you fit right into that mold?
Actually, can I say I'm very surprised because I thought it was a very, very Asian parent thing to want your kid to do, these specific jobs. But is it the case for you too? Like growing up?
Very much so.
Following a certain blueprint? Surprised. But yeah, my parents were not pleased. Specifically my dad. He was, he always thought that it's something that I would grow out of. This whole quote unquote entrepreneurial
I understand.
Dreaming thing, So when I was still in uni, I think he let me try because he thought, okay, if you're still focusing on your studies, it's not too bad. But he was always very worried that I wouldn't do well in university and I would screw up and I would be a failure. So throughout university, I was doing a lot of freelance work. I was going out late at night, doing sales, meeting mentors for coffee. And at 10 p.m., he would be calling me saying, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And I kept avoiding conversations with him because I didn't want to explain what my plan was because I didn't have a plan. I was really just experimenting. So my parents were not pleased. They were very worried, actually. They had my best interest at heart, but they were really very, very worried. And then one day, I remember someone that, a friend who is a couple of years older than me, my senior, he actually said to me, Ray, if you can't even have a tough conversation with your parents and advocate for yourself about your business, respectfully, how can you do that in anything in future?
Wow.
I think I was like 23 or something. But those words really hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Right, and here am I sneaking around, lying to my parents, telling them I'm out for study group late at night, but I'm actually doing other things. So that day, I went back home. I arranged a tough conversation, my first tough conversation with my parents. And I spoke to him frankly, and I got him to lay out all his worries, like me going out late at night, worried about my safety, worried that my grades would be ruined. And I tackled it one by one. And not everything was solved in one night, but that really was the start of our relationship improving.
So it's all about communication then.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
communication. I understand where you're coming from. Many women, myself included, did everything that was expected. You're expected to have a husband or a family, children, a job, have 2 cars and a white picket fence, and you just go along, and then you retire and sit back and enjoy life. What makes a woman decide to break that mold? How do you train women or teach women to break that mold and make that first step to get out of that pattern that where we ask permission to do things? How do you do that?
It's interesting that you talked about the things that are expected, right? Like the white picket fence. In Singapore, we call it the 5 C's. It's kind of outdated, but you have your condo, your credit card, your cash, you have your country club.
Yeah.
Can't remember what the last C is really, but it's a 5 C's. So there's a version of that probably in every culture.
Yeah.
To be frank, I was a rebellious child growing up. I didn't really do well in my studies. So when people ask me, why did you decide to pursue entrepreneurship? Why didn't you choose like the more predictable path? Because the predictable path did not work for me. I didn't do well in my studies. Like I had no choice. I was getting B's, which was okay, but I knew that if I followed that predictable path, I'll always be an average worker. I wouldn't really be playing to my strengths. So I really had no choice but to go out there and find out like what am I meant to do in this world. And I was honestly like desperate. Like for my 4 years in university, I was desperate to try so many different things. Speaking, going to schools to train, doing sales, selling water filters door to door. I did everything to find out what was the thing that I was meant to do.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of gung-ho, like go all in energy that got me my first opportunity and then my next and then my next. So when I meet women who are so constrained by what they feel they need to do, I think because I have that perspective, right? And they see me living the life that I love. And I think they choose to work with me because they want that life and they just don't know how they realistically can get it. And because I have that perspective and I'm able to inspire and help them see their potential through my story, they start opening a little bit on what their dreams are, what they actually want for their life. And something really powerful happens when you start talking about your dreams and you share it with people.
Yeah.
And you take the first step and you start seeing small things happen, small results happen, because you start convincing yourself that it is possible. That is the first step.
Wow. And do they come to you? I mean, that takes a lot of courage for a woman to say, oh, I need to do something different. I want to do something different. There's a fear in there of change and doing something that's not expected. How do they come to you and how do they begin? I mean, I would not know even how to begin to coach someone. If I'm afraid of doing this, how do I do that? What are their
Can I
first
ask,
steps?
what do you think are the fears that people have?
Oh, I think a fear of change, fear of not doing fear of breaking a mold, fear of coming out and doing something different and living their passion. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people maybe not know what their passions are, but if they do, they're
Yeah.
afraid of taking that step.
So let me share with you this and let me know if this resonates. People reach out to me when their fear of staying the same is bigger than their fear of change.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They have that fear of changing, but they have been through enough internal torment, waking up day by day in an environment they don't enjoy, around people that they know is, they're not thriving around. And they just kind of reach a breaking point where they're like, do I want this to be where I'm at 10 years from now? Right? I know of a recent client that is her struggle, right? She's a creative, beautiful superstar, right? She's so talented at what she does, right? And she has big dreams, but over time, she gave herself a more practical path. Let me choose this path instead. It makes more sense, right? And she decided to work with me the last couple of months because she said, Rae, it's now or never. I'm in my mid-30s, it's still early, I think, but he's just like, I'm in my mid-30s. I feel like it's too late, right? But I feel like if I don't take the
Wow.
step now,
30s.
I know how ironic is that. Seriously, a
30's
lot
too
of
late.
people,
Oh my God.
in their mid-30s and 40s, they're like, is it too late? Is it too late? Am I going to be silly, selfish even to like
You're right.
pursue what I want? Like, maybe it's too late. I'm like, you have literally your entire like more than half a life in front of you. I know it's so weird saying this to you.
It is. It's very weird saying it to me. I mean, my breaking the mold was a little bit later than that. And it was.
How was it for you? I mean,
Yeah, it was.
what was the process?
Speaking of that, it was very hard. I was married for 21 years, and I never felt like I belonged where I was. I enjoyed my career. I'm an educator, and I enjoyed that a lot. I think that was my calling, and I really enjoyed that. But then I left the building and left those children and came out, and it was like something's missing. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't belong here. There's something else.
Right. So
And-
I feel like though the people that actually create something for themselves is when they realize that instead of numbing it, they go and do something about
Yeah.
it. And you did that.
It did, but not everybody has that. I guess that courage. I would use the word courage to do that. And not only that, I didn't know what it was I wanted to do. I had no idea, and I sort of stumbled into things along the way, and I really didn't have an idea of what it was that I was supposed to be doing. But do you find that with women too, that they want to do something, but they just don't know exactly what it is?
100%.
And how did they overcome that? How do you help them find their passion? What happens? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Well, the first thing that I help them do is recognize that not knowing what to do is not a problem.
Good point.
Yeah. I've dealt with this before. Oh my goodness. Like, I remember 3 years ago, I was having this same challenge where I achieved a lot of success in my business. I achieved the goals that I wanted in uni. All I wanted was to be able to do my work for a living, and I managed to achieve that. And then I kind of reached a point of burnout, and I'm like, why do I feel like something's stuck? I need to solve something within me. And then I realized that I was pressuring myself to figure it out now. It's like, I want to figure it now, like now. I want it now, right? And I think that's the issue. When we feel that we need to know it now, we're not giving ourselves space to actually experience life and to play with the opportunities that are in front of us, right? Maybe there are opportunities in front of us. Maybe there are things that we can do, but because we're so focused on finding a practical solution, how can I chase my passion and make money out of it, that we're like blinded to the actual opportunities like this podcast, writing this book. Like maybe it's all around, you're just not allowing yourself to fall into it. So the first thing that I do when I work with, my coachees is whatever struggle, resistance, resentment, fear that they have, do not see the emotion as a problem, but instead allow it to exist.
That's a good point.
Feel it. Allow it to speak to you. What is its real fear? Right? Because our body and our voice has so much wisdom, right? And when you allow it to speak to you, it's going to give you hints on what exactly is stopping you. It's going to tell you what it needs in order to overcome it and to see the possibility instead of the limitations. So once they're able to feel like, you know what? Yeah, let me just be in this space for a bit. Like, let me just accept that these emotions exist. Then at a more neutral state, they're able to then, I'll ask them, what are things that you enjoy doing? What are things that you wish you could do if you had more time? Like go back to those passions. And when you're in that state of passion, purpose, flow, and joy, that is when the opportunities will come a lot easier.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I mean, I know you've seen some success stories that you had no idea that would come along. Can you think of maybe one or two outstanding success stories that you help coach and you've watched them come out of that mold and watched them just blossom?
Oh my gosh, so many. Like a pretty recent one is this one client of mine. She's, looks similar to me. She's an Asian female in a very male and Western dominant environment, so she'll be going to these networking events and she would look like a sore thumb. Like she'll stick out like a sore thumb because she's a minority. And every time she tries to have conversations with these older people, older Western white men, basically, older people, they would like speak over her. It would be very hard to have a proper conversation and she'll tend to just hold back. Okay, never mind. I won't say what I want to say. So she started working with me because she wanted to own her voice and just say what's on her mind without feeling small, without feeling that lack of confidence. I worked with her, and I remember like 2 months into the program, she basically achieved that goal.
Wow.
So she was in this huge, big networking event with like 1,000 people. It was a huge expo hall, and she wanted to raise her hand to ask a question, but she felt that fear. But she told herself, I'm just gonna raise my hand and I'll figure it out later. So she raised her hand, right? She said it's like 3 seconds of courage. She asked the question, albeit imperfectly, but she did it anyway. And after she asked the question, I think in the next hour, 2 prospects that she was trying to follow up with but didn't reply her found her in the room and said, hey, you're that girl who asked that question, right? Oh yeah, I remember I saw you in my inbox. I'm sorry I haven't responded. Yeah, I would love to follow up on that, right? So they decided to work with her and her company. And the CEO who organized that networking event also followed up with her and said, hey, I want to do something together with your company. All because of that boldness that she had. So it seems easy, 3 seconds, raise hand, but actually it took a lot of that inner work and the practice.
It does.
Right? Inner work would be building a relationship with her voice, knowing what's holding her back. And then the outer work would be practicing using your voice every day. So I do this thing with my clients called the daily insight, where 15 minutes a day, you consume a piece of content and then you verbalize, you articulate your opinions about that content.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. So when you do that every day, you get comfortable with sharing your thoughts, sharing your opinions. And that's why when she raised her hand, she was able to ask that question. She was able to articulate it. So that 3 seconds of courage took a lot of internal work, but she did it anyway. And that is how she's able to, speak more confidently and feel like she's actually being heard in her company, in her industry.
Wow, that's great. When I was coming along, women didn't. We did, but we didn't speak up like that. And there were certain careers that you went into as a woman, and you didn't go into them as anything else. You was education or nursing or something of that nature.
Wow.
You didn't aspire to be the doctor. You didn't aspire to be the principal, but you were, do you find younger women taking more bolder steps now, or are they still having the same issues that they sit back? You mentioned about this young woman that was sort of in a room full of men and sort of fearful of that. Do you find younger women taking a bolder step?
I mean, I would love to hear a little bit about, could you share a bit first about that world? I mean, the world now is so different. I think we have progressed so much, right? I don't think I was ever told you can't be this or that because you're a woman. Like, was that the case, actually?
I wasn't told that, no, but it was sort of, I was expected, the expectations, you had to meet the expectations. I knew, when I was coming along, I never knew that I didn't have to go to college or university. It was when you go, not if you go, but when you go. So I never knew that there was a different route, that I could have done something differently. I could have gone to be an electrician, or I could have been a who knows what, but I didn't, or chef or something. I didn't know that you couldn't go to college, so I did that. Luckily, I was one of the lucky ones that went into a career that I loved, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But there were so many people of my era that went into a career that they were not meant to be. It was not meant for them. But they did that because of those expectations. And like I said, I didn't know. Someone said, why did you go to education? And for a while, which was not exactly true, I would say, well, there was nothing else for me to do. But that was not true. I really enjoyed it. But there again, it was almost like I belittled the profession because I didn't want anybody to think that I was trying to strive for anything else. But that was my profession, and that was something I thoroughly enjoyed. But I sort of belittled that, I just because I thought it was expected for me to have bigger, broader ideas, or I don't know exactly what I expected, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So when I broke out of my mold, it opened up a whole new world, and I was free. I felt free because I felt like I belonged in the world, traveling, doing things that I wanted to, meeting people, talking to people.
What was the exact moment that you broke out of
exact
your mold?
moment. I think when I was in my 40s, I went back to graduate school to get my master's in library science.
Wow,
40s.
that's very unconventional.
Very unconventional. I went back and get my master's degree. And I had never, when I was at home, I'd always not been told to be quiet, but it was a subtle emotional robbery, so to speak. Why did you do that? Well, that wasn't good. Why did you say that? So you're not good enough. Don't say anything. Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Not to some degree. I still spoke, believe me. I still spoke probably more than I should have. But it was a subtle dig. And I went to the university, and I came into a school. I was in the class where all these younger women were there, younger men to become librarians, and I'm the oldest one in the room. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking, oh, they're new in college. They've been in this university. I can't remember a thing that I learned in university now. What am I going to do? I don't want to say anything. So I sat quietly. I didn't say anything. And finally, the professor asked a question, an open-ended question. And he looked at me and said, what do you think? I was a nervous wreck. I wish I'd had your coaching before I got in there because I was a nervous wreck. I was scared to death. Am I going to say the wrong thing? Is it going to be stupid? Is it going to sound crazy? I don't want to say it. Anyway, all of a sudden I blurted out something, and he said, that is very good. He said, you have a great perspective. After class, he came and said, you have life experiences that these younger people don't have. You understand why we're doing certain things that they don't understand. I went, oh, wow. That was the first time in a long time that I had felt valued.
Wow.
Really valued for my opinion, because I was always the joker. I joked around and laughed, and in high school and in elementary school, I was the one that made everybody laugh. So I sort of kept that pattern. That was the first time I really felt like what I said mattered.
Wow.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
Having a great teacher.
It was
Powerful.
It was. He was a great professor because he gave me that confidence.
Wow.
Gave me the confidence to, and I thought, well, shoot, if he thinks it, I must be okay. So let me try something else. So anyway, I did pursue my master's degree, and then went back to the classroom and spread that thought throughout the classroom too for younger mentor teachers. I was a mentor teacher, so spread that knowledge too. That's when I found out there was some women and men too that went into the education field shouldn't be there. They had picked the wrong thing because it was a path that they thought they should take.
Yeah. And actually that's harmful for the students.
Very harmful.
When you're in a job that you're not meant to be in, and you show it. You show resentment, you show hate.
Absolutely.
I have a similar story where a conversation changed the way I thought about rules in business completely, or rules in what I do completely. So one of my biggest dreams is to be like a global talk show host, to be like Asian Oprah.
I'm right there with you.
Really?
I'm right there with you. Go ahead.
You wanna meet Oprah?
I want to meet Oprah. I want to talk to Oprah. I want to be interviewed by Oprah. Oprah, are you listening? It is us.
Yeah,
Here
us.
we are.
2 for
we
1.
Have yes, 2 for 1. We'll come together. You have an American Oprah and an Asian Oprah. So tune in. We're on our way. Go for it.
Yeah, so I was sharing this with a mentor of mine, and she's amazing lady, Brenda Benz. She's one of the top coaches in the world, won many awards.
Oh, wow.
And it was awesome to be mentored by her. And I said, Brenda, I really want to be an amazing host, but I'm afraid that because I'm from Singapore that, I would be naive. I've never experienced natural disasters or like been the minority. Like, I know that people go through a lot of shit outside in the world and I'm just afraid I can't relate to them. How can I be a good host then? And she said, Rae, what do you think is needed to be a good host?
That's a
I was
great
like,
question.
Okay, I need to be an active listener, right? I need to have a keen sense of curiosity for the people I'm hosting. I have to know how to ask good questions to mine the stories out of them. I need to know how to connect the dots. If I'm hosting a panel of people, I need to connect the dots between what each person says. And then she says, "Yeah, aren't you really doing that?" I was like,
That's simple, eh?
that is true.
That's
And then I
simple.
thought about it, I'm like, actually, maybe me not knowing about the topic in depth could be a good thing because then I'm seeing things from a very neutral, non-biased point of view. I'm able to be a layman and ask questions and be that connector to the audience that are also not experts in that topic. So if the experts say something that's a little bit too complex, I'm able to ask ask questions to help break it down so the audience will be able to understand. I'm like, oh yeah,
100%.
that could be a benefit too.
100%. Okay, let's get real and dirty now.
Oh,
Let's do. Suppose you have this have you ever gotten with a client that you think, oh, for God's sakes, you need to move on. I've done everything I can possibly do. I've seen you've tried and tried and tried. You're not really doing what I'm asking you to do. You're wasting your time. Have you ever run into any clients like that you think, oh my God, you're a lost cause? Or do you, you just keep right on going and say, okay, let's try something different? What do you do? How do you handle that situation?
Okay, the good thing is I don't have a lot of these clients very
Okay,
often.
good. That's
I'm
good.
very lucky. I'm lucky because I've built a brand that I think filters people already. So when they come into my program, there's really these unspoken expectations that as a coach, I am not your mom or your dad. Like I'm not even your accountability buddy. I'm not. Like you are your own accountability buddy. You have to find your own motivation. I'm here to help clear away the weeds that's stopping you from taking action, to help you clear away the limiting beliefs, to help you get that sense of clarity and direction. But you have to be the one executing and doing the work. So there's really that sense of, expectation.
Love it.
So I don't really have those clients, thankfully, but I do have one or two clients that sometimes I feel, I know we could go so much deeper, but you're not willing to.
Yeah.
That kind of feeling. And it's not like you're a lost cause because, but it's more of like, we could do much deeper. We really could, but you need to allow me to guide you, work with you to feel emotions that you have been locking for years. Right? And I try, you try as a coach, you try from different angles, you give many openings. But if the coachee isn't willing to break down, you got to break down before you have a breakthrough. If they aren't willing to break down and they want to hold up the walls, I'm professional, I can do it, they want to hold up those walls and they're unwilling to be vulnerable, it is very hard to get to the core. So I've had one or two of those clients, mainly men. I think that it's tougher for men to open up. But then I have met men because I coach men and women, but women, a lot of them are more open to being vulnerable.
To another woman too. Yeah, I guess so.
But I've met men who are much older than me, they're dads, and they are willing to open up to me. They're willing to actually cry in front of me and shed a tear. So I think everybody has their own season and timing.
Well, I think so too. But just from meeting you in the last couple of days, I've only known you a couple of days, but you really make people feel welcome.
Aww.
You really make people feel heard. So I can understand why you're a good coach. I see it clearly why you're a great coach because people just feel. I immediately resonated toward you. Your personality is like, wow, you're dynamic, you're motivational, inspirational. I can understand why you're a good coach and you're calling. This is your calling.
Thank you. I need to hear this sometimes. Honestly, I think this is the case with a lot of women. When we do something naturally, when it's something that is our gift.
I think so.
Right? Sometimes we undersell ourselves. we don't think is that big of a deal because it's what we are naturally good at doing. But that's why I think it's so powerful to hear it and be reminded of, yeah, these are your gifts. Yes, you can charge for it. No, don't let people lowball you, right? Like things like that. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
so important to remember that.
Exactly. One last question. I want to know something. You know, we all have fears, regardless of how much we try to hide them. What's your greatest fear?
Ooh, greatest fear.
Could be in your profession, could be in your personal life, could be. What's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear is to be the reason that I don't achieve my dreams.
Good answer.
Yeah. Like when I'm in my own way, you know.
Wow.
That's my
very
greatest
powerful.
fear.
That's very powerful. Rae, this has been absolutely fantastic. I can't believe I've had the honor of interviewing you here in Singapore. Can you believe it? I'm live on location. And I want to give you something. I wrote a memoir that tells you a little bit about my story. It's called Every Year Since. This is about my first trip to India and why I continue to go there and why I've been going there every year since.
Wow.
So thank you so much for being on Watch Your IQ. This has been just lovely.
Thank you.
So great. Thank you, everyone,
Wow.
for tuning in. If you're tuning into this, please talk to Rae and you're looking for a coach, a great coach. I've found you one. This has been Watch Your IQ. Let's talk about your impact quotient. And she certainly does have an impact on a lot of people. She's had an impact on me. This is Nancy Barbie signing off. See you next time.